Hello, Canada. Bonjour. I'm gonna make Toronto Blue Jays proud.
If you can believe it, we're only 34 days away from spring training 2020. So Jays insider Ben Nicholson-Smith is joining us to get us reacquainted and warmed up with the team that Toronto will field this upcoming season. And Ben, where else do you start than with the 4-year, $80 million man, Hyun-Jin Ryu. Massive signing for the franchise and one that I think fans have been clamoring for. But how big do you think his impact will be?
Well, I think it's huge on a few levels. I mean, for one, it just shows to fans that the Blue Jays are ready to spend. I mean, that's something that I think a lot of fans doubted, and now we've seen it. We've seen that they're willing to commit $80 million to a pitcher who was second in NL Cy Young voting last year. But then the on-field impact is obviously where the most important factor really exists. And for the Blue Jays, Ryu is someone who should be able to give them some really good innings. He's not exactly an innings eater. I mean, he's probably more likely to give 125, 150 innings than 200, but that's still a lot for a rotation that struggled a whole lot last year. And Ryu, even though he's a soft tosser, kind of a finesse pitcher in the mold of a Mark Burley almost, he's still someone who's really effective, missing bats, generating weak contact. That'll be a really welcome addition to this team.
So you got Ryu, new additions Tanner Roark and Chase Anderson as well. How much better is the rotation, which was a huge area of concern, and how stiff will competition be for other starting spots?
Yeah, I mean, along with those three that you mentioned and Matt Shoemaker, you kind of have 4 spots spoken for. So that leaves one open for maybe Trent Thornton, maybe Ryan Borucki, some of those young guns. Eventually Nate Pearson should be in that mix as well. But you look at that overall mix, and Ryu's really the only impact name, the only guy who's got that all-star type pedigree. But compared to last year when we saw Edwin Jackson and Clayton Richard and Clay Buchholz and all these, Ryan Fierabend, the left-handed knuckleballer, so many struggles. I mean, it's really an improvement even to have a group that might appear to be mediocre on the surface that's still an upgrade from last year. So by no means is this group on the level of the Yankees or the Rays, but it's still a group that should be much better than the rotation that posted a 5.25 ERA last year.
Speaking of newcomers, the Jays took a bit of a leap of faith on Travis Shaw, especially if you look at his numbers at the dish last season with the Brewers. It was a constant struggle. He made a minor swing adjustment that seemed to mess him up, but said that he's taken a turn in a positive direction as of September and felt he just wasn't given much of a chance to prove that. What are realistic expectations you have for what Shaw can do?
It's a really tough question because with Shaw, he's had such good seasons in the past. 17 and 18 for him were great years, 30 home runs, well above average hitter. So you know it's there, and especially against right-handed pitching, this is someone who has been really effective. So you know that as a lefty bat, he balances out the Blue Jays order a little bit, gives Charlie Montoyo another weapon against right-handed pitching. I'm not sure how he's going to do against lefties. I don't know if he's going to bounce back to where he was a couple seasons ago. And of course, neither did the Blue Jays, but they're hoping that he can regain that form. He's only 29 years old, and they're taking a shot on a guy who has shown he can hit at the highest level.
Last year had that rebuild tag around it for sure, but yet the young position players gave moments that had fans watching every game because there was always something exciting to see. Do you anticipate there'll be a sophomore slump for those guys, or will it be another breakout?
I think we're more likely to see further breakouts than we are sophomore slumps. I think these guys are legitimately good players. When you look at Vlad Guerrero Jr., I think he's going to be better than he was in 2019. Bo Bichette, I mean, he set the bar pretty high, so I'm not sure if we can necessarily forecast quite the same OPS necessarily, but then again, he only played a quarter of the season last year, or a third of the season, so there's a lot of room to improve from a volume standpoint with Bichette. And then Biggio has an incredible batting eye, that's not going anywhere. His versatility's for real, so that's an impressive combination. I think overall, the Jays should expect to get much more value than they got from those guys as rookies.
One thing that can't be ignored from 2019 is the 95 losses, the most in nearly 4 decades. So, Ben, where do you put the wins, losses for 2020? It has to be better?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
I mean,
okay.
yeah, they're not losing 95 games
No.
again. This roster's
Okay.
a lot better than that. That being said, they're in a really tough division, so they're not one of the best teams. They're probably 4th best in this division. clearly ahead of the Orioles, clearly behind the Red Sox, Yankees, and Rays. So to me,
no, par for the course then, Ben.
yeah,
Right?
and that's not a shock, really.
Yeah.
I mean, we're used to seeing that year over year. So I would guess that 80 wins is probably a fair expectation for this team. They could be worse if things go wrong. They could be a fair amount better. I mean, they could win 85 if everything goes right. But I think the most likely would be 80 wins, 81 wins, 500 record for this team.
Awesome. All right. Well, every week we will have Ben here to get us all ready for spring training. Pitchers and catchers right around the corner. Thanks, Ben.
Anytime.